Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the return on investment from your HR function. Is HR your friend or your foe? Is it a cost or is it a benefit? Now, I'm hearing that many people think, certainly business leaders, seem to think that the HR function, it's all a bit of a cost. It's all basically a bit of a pain in the arse. It's a necessary evil of doing business. And it generally prevents you from getting what you need done. Now, interestingly, a recent People Profession report published by the CIPD had buried within it three rather worrying findings. And this was that only a third of business leaders felt that the HR function was helping their organization to be more agile, whereas another third, in fact slightly over a third, felt that the HR function was too compliance focused and unable to be flexible to changing circumstances. And most of all, 25%, or 1 in 4 of those leaders, felt that the HR function was not exhibiting adaptable behaviors. This is not good news. Clearly, HR has a perception problem, a branding problem, perhaps. So why is it that people are seeing HR this way? What really is the truth of the matter? Is HR a benefit to your business? Or is it really a bureaucratic cost that you just have to bear? Now, there may be a number of reasons why that perception exists. I'm not going to have time to go through all of them now. There are certainly some big picture things to think about. For example, when it comes to economic situations and the pressures on business, this is a dynamic that can change quite rapidly. Look at the events of just this year in 2020, for example. So businesses can find themselves under economic pressure and having to react quite swiftly to changing circumstances. But the employment legislation, the rules and regulations that govern how we manage our workforces and the relationships between the employer and the employee, there's a latency there. They take a little bit more time to catch up. Dating all the way back to the 1823, I think it was, Master and Servants Act, from then till now, employment legislation has been on a continual evolution to try and balance the needs of workers with the needs of businesses, with the employers. It takes a while to find that balance, and probably there'll never be a perfect balance. Anyway, it strikes me that one of the possible reasons this perception exists is because that whilst the business is trying to react swiftly to changes in circumstances, it takes a while for changes in work regulations and legislation to adapt. So we've just recently seen over the past, few years, the issues around limby workers, as they're called, or freelancers that are under the control of an employer, the use of zero-hour contracts. There's been some controversy over that, the lack of predictability that people suffer from in terms of their income and how much work they're going to be getting. This culminated in the Taylor Review of Modern Working Practices, and that was then followed up by the government's own Good Work Plan, which highlighted some ideas they had on how to, again, refine that balance between the needs of businesses and the needs of workers, trying to shift it a little bit more so that the workers had a fairer deal. Only some of those measures have been implemented. We're expecting more to come. So that might be one reason for why HR is perceived as being too compliance focused, and it's simply because the business is trying to adapt and HR is trying to say, well, hang on, I know you want to adapt, but at the same time we can't fall foul of the rules. Other things to think about, it could be that leaders don't know how to measure or evaluate the ROI. In fact, I have seen posts in a couple of online forums and social media environments where some HR business partners have said, look, I'm trying to show my management what the ROI is on HR, and, they talk about some of the, the employee engagement and doing all the right things, and but the manager's like, oh yeah, I know, but just show me. I want something I can see. I want a tangible metric. So let's break those two things down and we'll work through it. First, let's look at the benefits. Let's look at the theoretical stuff, and we'll get to the metrics later. The theory is fairly straightforward, and this is that if you have a happy, satisfied, fulfilled, and highly motivated workforce, they are going to work hard. They're going to be productive. They're going to be proud of what they do. They're going to feel like they're doing something meaningful, and they're likely to give it 100%. Many of them may even go that extra mile. Now, if the workforce is disposed to work hard and be productive and be highly motivated, well, then obviously productivity will be better. And if productivity is better, then your profit will improve. So there is a direct relationship between having a really good set of HR practices. That leads to improved employee engagement, improved employee satisfaction, which in turn results in more productivity and more profit. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Another thing to think about is, well, okay, if that's the case, what about the metrics? How do we measure that? I mean, the theory sounds fine, but give me some metrics. Well, there are a number of metrics you can use. There are some measurements around employee turnover. So what is your attrition rate, your voluntary attrition rate? That gives you a clue as to how satisfied people are. People who are generally unsatisfied, they'll find work elsewhere if they can. So if you have a high attrition rate, then that's telling you that there's something wrong. You can also look at a stability index. What is the mean length of service of people that you've got? How many employees have you got with more than a certain number of years service compared to the number of employees you had in the organization the year before? So the more people that you have who've been around for longer also gives you an idea that hopefully for the most part they feel enfranchised in the organization, and that's why they're sticking around. It's possible there are a few that are sticking around because they've got nowhere else to go, or it could be that there's a few that are sticking around because nobody's managing them properly or managing their performance. But the basic principle is people that enjoy working somewhere tend to stay there. So the other thing you can do is you can do employee engagement surveys. You can measure the satisfaction of employees. You can also be looking at things like, are you an employer of choice? Are you being recognized by candidates looking at you as an employer, as someone that they'd like to work for? And so you can have a look at measurements like that. Now, you might say, yes, but this still doesn't come down to, pounds and pennies. If you really want something in a spreadsheet that shows you the pounds, then that might be a little trickier. However, I invite you to think of it this way. If you have a car, you're going to insure your car and you're going to have your car serviced. How do you measure the return on investment on that? If you service your car, keep it well maintained, the car is likely to perform better because it'll be kept in good condition, the engine will be looked after, the fuel economy will be better, and of course you'll have less likelihood of a breakdown. So on the positive side, improved performance or better economy, and on the avoiding the negatives, less chances of a breakdown. Same thing with insurance. Insurance is there because hopefully you don't have an accident, but should you have an accident, insurance will take care of it and you don't have to fork out from your own pocket. Well, it's a legal requirement anyway. How do you measure the ROI? I mean, really, it's there because it is a safety net against something going wrong in the case of an insurance policy. So for the most part, yes, it's a sunk cost. You don't gain any profit from having an insurance policy, but you know from personal experience or from observing other people how important it is to have an insurance policy should the worst happen. So now let's take that analogy over to an HR function. An HR function, as I was saying before, if it's performing well and looking after your people and making them happy, everything is well maintained, then the productivity will improve, the profit will improve. But it also prevents things going wrong. Just like servicing a car, if you look after the car, you're going to mitigate the risk of having a breakdown. Similarly, if you look after your people, you're going to mitigate the risk of there being a conflict or breakdown in relations or something going wrong. It's not guaranteed, but it's going to help. If you think of it that way, then it should hopefully be a little bit clearer what the value of HR is. Hopefully that has now given you a bit more of an idea about the benefit of having an HR function, that HR really is your friend, and it's not just a cost to the business, but can actually help make things better. It is true that we have to comply with employment legislation. The costs of not doing that could be potentially very significant if you find yourself on the receiving end of a claim and being taken to an employment tribunal. Even if it doesn't go that far, the disruption to your business of having to deal with an employee complaint or a toxic atmosphere in the workplace is not something you want to have happen. But it's not just the bad news, it's all about improving the employee engagement, making sure, as I said earlier, that they're satisfied, highly productive, and therefore helping you reach your profit goals. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope it's been interesting, a little shorter one than normal. If you like it, please like it. If you don't, feel free to dislike it. If you have got a comment on what you think the value of HR is, why not leave your thoughts below? I'd be quite interested to see what you've got to say. As ever, you can help me out by subscribing to the channel, and what's in it for you? Well, your return on investment is that you get more content like this. Okay, I hope you're all well, take care, and catch up with you next time.